Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I would like to run through all of the features and deliverables that had work ending in June. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support, and if you do appreciate my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. So each month I like to put together a video that takes a look at all of the work that is kicking off, as well as finishing each month, just to keep it all more informed as to what work is going on in the background. Now, before we get to it, just because a feature on the progress tracker has work beginning or completing in a particular month, does not necessarily mean it'll be released that quarter, the next quarter, or even in that year, as there could still be more work required from other teams, for example the downstream teams like audio, visual effects and so on, or even priorities can shift and it can get pushed back until later on. It is, however, a great guide to see what could potentially come to the persistent universe when, but at the very least, it shows us what work is being done at what time in the year from the various teams. So with that said, let us take a look at all of the features and deliverables that had work ending in the month of June. First up, we have the Actor Status Tier 2, which is building on the system that we have now that brought food and drink and the medical symptoms, and expanding this system with other elements like hygiene, DNA integrity, medical insurance, cloning, and cybernetic limbs, plus tracking the status of NPCs. Now, this update from the actor feature team had 12 weeks work and is likely needed for Squadron 42 before it rolls out to the PU, but there is quite a lot to unravel here. Firstly, it sounds like NPCs will begin to be affected by the same statuses as players, with NPCs requiring certain needs, maybe opening up the possibility for NPC medical recovery missions. That would be cool. But also, it will be further developing the death of a spaceman mechanic, with your Abraham sphere's integrity degrading the more that you regenerate, which ties into the medical insurance and the available choices of cybernetic limbs. So quite the expansion on what we have now, and it will likely require a bit of understanding. Next, we have asteroid facilities, which I am really excited to see, and this says adding new asteroid facilities to the persistent universe, which are handcrafted traversable areas offering different gameplay opportunities both in the interior and exterior of asteroids, and this had 53 weeks work from the EU Sandbox 1 team. So quite the exciting new addition that will further expand on the points of interest locations for missions and more, hopefully even offering the option for players to finally get their asteroid hangars, but these locations will likely range initially from legitimate facilities to pirate and gang locations with illegal operations. This could be something we see at CitizenCon. It might not, but hopefully we get to take a look as soon as possible. Now next up we have Cutting Tier 2, which brings the intended functionality to the Grey Cat multi-tool cutting attachment, allowing players to cut through specific objects as well as freeform cut on specific surfaces. Now, aside from the obvious use cases which we have seen in the past, like cutting through locks or grates, this will also apply to salvaging and being able to chop up pieces of various materials into more manageable sizes. And something like this will provide another option and choice when it comes to completing missions as well. Now, Cutting Tier 2 had 40 weeks work from the graphics team and the weapon features team. Hopefully this is something that we can get into the persistent universe as soon as possible, but it again may require a little time in the Squadron 42 branch first. Now next up we have a few new ammo types, which will be expanding on the range of weapon and damage choices, being realistically represented in-game for combat, each with their different effects. First we have Disarray Ammo, which says it is a new charged ballistic projectile that emits an electromagnetic pulse, helping to not only damage the target, but disrupt power systems. And this also leads on to another feature that completed work in June called Distortion Propagation, which is a damage type used by Disarray Ammo to correctly propagate the damage into systems close to its impact. So definitely needed for the engineering system, but both the Disarray Ammo and Distortion work will impact combat, damage, and more in a big way when it is all completed, offering more choice for players when deciding on their loadouts. Now the next ammo type is called Incendiary, and as you can imagine this is also a ballistic projectile that burns on impact, causing the target to take damage over time and potentially causing items in the environment to catch fire. So a damage type that we see in many of the games that Star Citizen will certainly utilise, and as with any of these new ammo and damage types, offering the players new ways to approach situations, either hostile or not. And just like we saw with disarray and distortion systems, incendiary will be connected heavily to the fire hazard system, and I do certainly hope to, and somewhat expect to see the fire hazard system shown off at CitizenCon this year. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it in a keynote or a gameplay demo. Now the next ammo type is called flak ammo, which is another new damage type that triggers on proximity or exploration, causing a concentrated burst of shrapnel to damage targets in an area. And this is going to be a very fun damage type to use and defend against. I can just imagine flying somewhere, maybe delivering some goods, and all of a sudden you come under flak fire with explosions all around you, and then once you land, you take a look at your ship and the damage that you've received with it being pot-marked all over the place. That'll be very interesting. Flak ammunition had about 45 weeks work duration, that finished right at the beginning of June. And the final new ammo type is plasma, which, similar to fire, causes a damage over time, but with larger plasma weapons leaving a hazardous residue behind that will cause further damage to anything in proximity to it. Now it is very exciting to see so many new damage types coming along, and when this is combined with the physical damage system, the scope for these crazy battles dealing with damage and the aftermath of this, seeing these various damage types affecting all of the ships and vehicles in unique ways, will certainly be something to behold. Now next up we have the Grey Cat salvaging tool, which had 114 weeks work and appears to be needed for Squadron 42 as well, but this work involved designing and creating a standalone salvage tool which includes the asset creation, animation and balancing. Now for the persistent universe, we currently have the multi-tool which allows us to scrape the hull of a ship, storing that into a canister that we can then sell for 192 Alpha UEC. Of course, pricing will change over time with the economy in the future, but this doesn't really make it a viable way to make a lot of cash. It is really more intended for fixing up your own ship. Now for this standalone salvaging tool, which will offer the option of a backpack as well, will allow players to scrape the hulls of ships likely quicker with it being a bigger tool and a dedicated tool, offering a lot more storage room to make a lot more money, making hull scraping a valid way to earn cash outside of using a ship. So I'm really looking forward to seeing all of these dedicated tools come along to allow players to not use a ship as much, but offering us other ways to make money. Great for a Zero to Hero series as well. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if they slipped in this salvaging tool into the CitizenCon demo in some way, just to kind of show it off in the background. That would be a nice touch. Now, hacking Tier 0 is next, and this has also had a lot of work and time gone into it with 127 weeks duration. And this we have heard about in the past, and it will involve a couple of methods last we did here, although I think they have further expanded on this since then, but one of which will be similar to real-world hacking, so typing commands to override systems and so on. Now I'm really excited to see how the hacking system will work, as it will interact with many aspects of the game, from data running, extracting that valuable data from ships' drives, to accessing various areas or information of a location. It will also involve counter-hacking, so stopping or delaying others' access to these systems while trying to get away maybe, or wait for help. Now next up we have a few new outfits to run through. First up we have the Duster faction outfits, which we have heard about for quite a while now. The Duster gang are from Stanton, and this is just fleshing them out further with their own identity. The same goes for the Frontier clothing, which is a new style of dress to represent NPCs found outside of the UEE systems like Pyro. Another outfit that was developed was the Rough and Ready faction, who are a Pyro gang, as well as the Headhunter faction, which is the final clothing update, who again we have heard about for quite a bit of time now, and this gang also comes from Pyro, which we will likely see when we get to Pyro, if not for a keynote if they show Pyro off again at CitizenCon. Now next up we have a few new mission types that many of them we have heard about recently, so I won't spend too much time talking about them, but firstly we have the Mining Resource Rush mission, which will be very similar to the salvaging contracts it seems, where clusters of asteroids are being sold off by organizations for players to get access and sort of legal rights to mine them, which I suppose will involve legitimate contracts that give you the legal rights to do it, but also illegal contracts where you may garner a bit of unwanted attention, and potentially more as well. The package extraction mission also completed its work from the mission feature team and narrative team, which will bring players together to recover stolen Crusader ship components before the Ninetales take them off-world. The Retrieve Consignment mission is next, where players are tasked with locating items from a list in an underground bunker, extracting them safely, and this one is coming in with Alpha 320. And then finally we have the salvaging contracts, which were actually released in Alpha 319, however it appears that there was more work to be done on them, so we could see this roll out with updates in 320, although we are yet to know what these are. So nice to see so many new missions coming in, expanding on the available ways to make money, and soon building reputation as well. There are many more missions in the works, but those are just the missions that completed work in June. So leading on from that, we have weapon misfire and wear, and this brings the potential for certain weapons to misfire or malfunction depending on various factors like age, wear, dirt, and damage. So basically the need to maintain our items, or weapons in this case, to ensure that they function properly. And as mentioned in a video recently, this is going to be one of those love it, hate it mechanics, but personally I love it and I look forward to cleaning and taking care of all of my items. Now ship trespassing is next, and this, as we know, is updating the system that deals with other players being on board your ship, removing the comm notification first and foremost, and allowing owners to defend their ships as and when needed. Now this was pushed back from its initial intended release for 320, as they felt it required a little bit more work to iron out those potential edge cases, which hopefully means that when it does come along, it has covered more areas, and the rollout is as we hope it will be. Now, there are a couple of new player animation and movement types that completed work in June. First up, we have sliding, which will allow the players to slide a short distance along the floor, helping to move to cover in a combat situation. Now, this I really hope is not simply the same system we see in other games, and takes things like terrain into consideration more, or maybe even what you're wearing, as it always seems a little too action movie style for my liking. I do like the idea of being able to dive to cover, as it does add a bit of intensity to a firefight, but I do hope it is done in a much better way than most games. And the second animation type is Swimming Tier 0, which as you can imagine creates the basic functionality for players to swim, which will include related elements like entering and exiting the water or drowning. And this will also support hazardous liquids that can damage or kill the player. Now this will be a nice addition, and with the work done on boats, here's hoping that one day we will be able to go out on a boat, do some fishing, or just have a swim. Love it. There is one unannounced vehicle that completed its 11 weeks work from the EU Vehicle Content team, which could be building the vehicle into a straight-to-flyable vehicle, as this isn't the work from the concept teams, but we will have to wait to find out. Now, the remaining deliverables are for Squadron 42. Firstly, we have quite a few Squadron 42 chapters. We have 1, 6, 11, 14, 16, 18, 19, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 28. Hope you got that one. So a lot of Squadron 42 chapters come into completion there from the various teams. No idea what's left for these chapters, if anything, but as we have been reading for a while now in the monthly reports, it is mostly involving implementing the remaining systems and mechanics, while also playing through the campaign, polishing and improving the flow. Next up, we have the Vanduul fleet, which involved implementing, optimizing and polishing all of the features required to bring the various ships of the Vanduul fleet to gold standard, so quite a big task I imagine, as this doesn't just involve the ships that we see in the verse. There are many big ships for the Vanduul, and this was completed after 124 weeks work, so a big win there. And hopefully the people working on that can move over to gold standardizing the ships in the PU. And the final feature to finish work in June is the Chemline location, which is an abandoned extraction facility found on Gaini in the Odin system, which acts as a location for the campaign. Now, we got to see this location back in, I think it was 2015 or 2016, during the vertical slice, and I imagine it has come a long way since then. But there you go, that was a monstrous amount of systems and features coming to completion. I do suspect we will see many of these shown off at CitizenCon this year. Which ones we do and don't know, I don't know yet. But it is great to see so much progress, and here's hoping that we get to see a lot of it roll out to the verse as soon as possible. With that said, if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. We are making a push for 60,000 subscribers. Also, come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. You are all more than welcome over there. If you are new and have any questions about Star Citizen, about the project, by all means, come and ask them. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.